The wind came first, low and restless, curling over the station yard like something half alive. The sunset burned itself out across the horizon, painting the rails in a dying gold. Sakari stood barefoot by the bench, a woven pouch hanging from her hand, the beads dull from smoke. She hadn't cried since morning, there were no tears left to spend. The last train had gone, and with it the only world she'd ever known. The air smelled of cinders. Somewhere a shutter banged. She listened as if the sound might belong to her mother's voice, but it was only the wind again, teasing the empty platform. She could almost believe the whole town had forgotten how to breathe. Then a single set of hoofbeats broke the stillness, slow, uneven, heavy with distance. A rider appeared out of the dust, tall and spare, coat torn at the seams. His horse limped. He dismounted without hurry, like a man used to endings. His name was Enepe, though the wind seemed to speak it first. He tied his reins to the post and drank from a tin canteen, his movements stripped of ceremony. When his eyes lifted, they found hers, dark meeting dark, neither one looking away long enough to remember courtesy. Mala, the old station keeper, leaned out of the window to watch them. Evening, she rasped, though her gaze was sharper than her voice. The sheriff on the porch shifted his weight, spitting into the dirt. Careful, stranger, he called. That girl's got trouble stitched to her shadow. Enepe said nothing. He'd learned silence was safer than truth. Sakari knelt to gather the apples Mala had dropped, her fingers steady even as the sheriff's words settled like stones around her. The cowboy noticed how gently she lifted each fruit from the dust, as if small mercies could still matter in a ruined world. It stirred something quiet inside him. When the last train whistle vanished into the night, the platform felt abandoned by time. Enepe sat on the edge, cigarette unlit, watching the horizon fade. Sakari approached. Her voice came softly, fragile as the last light. I lost my family today, she said. Can you take me with you? He looked up slowly, unsure he'd heard right. Her face was young but her eyes belonged to someone older, someone who had already bargained with grief. He wanted to tell her no. The road was no place for strays. But when she reached into the air beside her, as though grasping for a hand that was gone, he felt something deep in his chest shift, like an old door giving way. Where you headed? He asked. Nowhere left, she said. He studied her for a long moment. Nowhere's a long ride. I can walk. He exhaled, rubbed a hand across his jaw. One night, he said at last. Just till the next town. She nodded, a tremor of relief crossing her face. They left the station without another word. Behind them, Mala whispered a prayer into her shawl, though even she couldn't tell if it was for the girl or the man. They rode through a country of shadows and gold. The moon hung thin and watchful. Sakari sat behind him, hands light on his coat, her hair catching sparks of starlight. Neither spoke. The sound of the horses' hooves beat like a weary heart between them. When the night turned cold, Enepe slipped off his coat and passed it back without turning. She murmured thanks, her voice nearly lost to the wind. By the time they made camp, the silence between them had grown familiar. She hummed while he built the fire, a melody woven with sorrow and something like hope. It wrapped around them, gentler than words. He stared into the flames until memory rose unbidden, his brother's face, laughter cut short by a pistol's echo. Shame tasted like iron in his mouth. She noticed his hands trembling as he poured water. Without a word, she took the cup from him and steadied it. That small act, simple, merciful, broke him a little further open. That song, he asked quietly, where's it from? My mother sang it when storms came, she said. Said it kept the dark from growing teeth. He nodded. Maybe I should have known that song a long time ago. Her smile flickered. You could still learn it. They ate in silence. The stars scattered above like spilled salt. When she finally slept, curled in his coat, he watched her for a moment longer than he should have. Something inside him whispered that maybe the world hadn't emptied itself completely of grace. Morning brought the color back to everything. They rode into a small town ringed with whispering wheat fields. Every porch had eyes. Enepe could feel the judgment before the first word was spoken. The sheriff from the station had beaten them there, his boots glinted in the sunlight. You again, the man drawled. Didn't think you'd drag trouble all the way here. Enepe met his stare. Just passing through. Is that right? The sheriff's gaze slid to Sakari. Better keep an eye on your gear, stranger. Strays like her forget what's theirs. The word struck harder than any bullet. Enepe's fingers twitched near his holster, but he stopped himself. Violence wouldn't change a single heart here. So he did the only thing that might. She's my wife, he said evenly. The sheriff's smirk faltered. That so? Since before you learned to spit, Enipe replied, voice flat as stone. The man looked into his eyes and saw nothing there worth fighting. After a long beat, he turned away. They rode out of town in silence. When they reached the ridge, Sakari finally asked, why did you say that? Because they'd have believed worse, he said. She nodded slowly. And you? Do you believe it? He didn't answer right away. The prairie wind filled the space between them. Maybe, he said at last. Maybe I want to. That evening they stopped by a dry riverbed. The light was copper, the air soft as breath. She knelt by the sand and traced patterns with her finger. I used to think love was a fire, she murmured. Now I think it's a shadow, you only see it when something bright passes by. He sat beside her. You think this is love? I think it could be, she said. If we let it. The words hung between them like smoke. He wanted to believe her. But belief was a wound for him, not a gift. He looked away, afraid the truth might show in his eyes. When the storm came, it came without warning. Clouds rolled in, thick and dark, rumbling low like distant drums. They barely had time to cover the fire before the rain began, sheets of it, fierce and cold. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the world in flashes. They huddled under a rock ledge, water streaming down their faces. She laughed then, sudden, wild, beautiful. It startled him. Why are you laughing? He asked over the thunder. Because the sky still bothers to cry, she said. Means it hasn't given up. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, the emptiness inside him cracked wide enough for light to enter. Without thinking, he reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. The rain softened, tapering to a whisper. Somewhere above, the clouds began to break. When morning came, the land was washed clean. They followed the river until it led them to a canyon rim where the earth fell away in colors too rich to name. The world seemed new again, as if creation had started over just for them. There, with the wind carrying the scent of wet sage, she told him the rest. They were killed in a raid, she said. My family. I hid under the ashes till the fire went out. He said nothing. His silence was not disbelief but reverence. When she looked up, his eyes were softer than she'd ever seen them. I've done my own share of killing, he said quietly. One night, too much whiskey, too much pride. Been running ever since. They sat together, the truth between them heavy and clean. We're both ghosts, she whispered. Maybe, he said. But ghosts can still choose where to haunt. She reached into her pouch and drew out a thin braid of grass, tying it around his wrist. So you don't leave without saying goodbye. He watched her fingers work, slow and sure. You think I'm still planning to leave? Her smile was small but certain. You always look like you're half gone. He took her hand, rough against rough, and lifted it to his lips. The gesture was quiet, unhurried, and it carried more weight than any vow. You're my home, Sakari, he said. The sun dipped lower, flooding the canyon in gold. They sat together until the shadows stretched long and the wind fell still, two figures outlined against a horizon too wide to hold them. Somewhere in that vast silence, the ache in both their chests loosened at last. And if you were to pass through that country now, some lonesome evening when the sky turns red and the rails hum with ghosts, you might feel it too, that faint pull between loss and grace, the hush that comes when broken souls finally stop running. Because the world, cruel as it can be, still leaves room for people like them, people who find each other in the dust and decide, quietly, to stay.